The last time the Australians lost 2 one-day internationals in a row was 2016. That was basically when Trump was inaugurated, prior to TikTok being known, and before all of us became amateur epidemiologists. They were already the world's best team long before they went on a 26-match winning streak, which was obviously completely ridiculous. And I'm not sure how it could ever be beaten, although I'd love to see someone try. And if you just look at them since the last World Cup, it's just the 31 wins compared to 2 losses. That's right, 2 losses in the World Cup cycle. Just remarkable winning. In a game that, while it's set up for the best team to win more than T20, there's still a little bit of randomness in a one-day international. To win that many games in a row is just wrong. It probably should be against the law. This is their win-loss ratio in that time. Bangladesh win 50% of their matches, so I've got them at neutral. The teams in green lose more than half their matches. You can see that South Africa have a really good record. They're toying with 3 wins for every loss. That should be good enough for first place at times, and at least should have them in the conversation for best team. There is no point of having any sort of conversation though, because Australia are so much better than everyone else. Having the conversation is a waste of your jaw movement. And there are a couple of ways that I like to look at how good a team is in ODI cricket. The first is average per wicket, with the bowling subtracted from what they score with the bat. And you can see that Australia make more than 20 runs per wicket than they allow. That is just completely bonkers. Well, you might think this is an ODI, an efficiency game, so run rates may be better. Well, they are 1.3 runs and over in the positive. So for every ball, they are 0.22 runs faster than their opposition. That's 65 runs per match. And that is why when you put it down like this, it looks so very dramatic. They are per over per wicket, just absolutely dominating the teams they play. And this is the sides that they have actually gone up against in that time. They've managed not to play against South Africa, but the majority of their games are from 3 of the 5 best teams. Of course, they are one of those best teams. They are just this good against proper teams. This isn't them cashing in on an easy schedule. Like, imagine if the majority of their games are up against the teams at the other end, like, well, Sri Lanka. And when you look at the batting, they have 4 of the top 10 in terms of batting average, though curiously, none in the top 3. But to have 4 players averaging over 48 is just absolutely remarkable. But again, averages are just part of the story. So when you're looking at the strike rates, you do get an idea that there are many women who are making a lot of runs, but not necessarily that quickly. Australia, of course, has Elise who does both. In fact, they have the top 2 fastest scorers in one-day cricket. It's 2 Aussies and then Daylight. They're the only 2 above a runner ball in that period. But let's put this all together so we can see the full picture. So when you look at it this way, it's just clear that this team is taking the absolute piss with the bat. To have 5 players averaging over 40, with one of them with the second best strike rate, and 2 others with fairly healthy ones, is obscene. There can't be many teams in the history of cricket with that kind of a strong top order available to them consistently in World Cup cycles. Oh, and of course they do have the person with the highest strike rate. In fact, it looks so high, it's like Ashley Gardner is left over from a previous graph. Of course, while the strike rates are really important, I think the most amazing thing here is the amount of runs they have managed to squeeze out of 5 women. Between World Cups, their batting has been so consistent in terms of averages. Fine, that's great. But they have also played so much. Australia have a plug-and-play 5 stars with the bat, and between them they have made 75% of Australia's runs in that time. 3/4. They don't fail. They don't miss games. They just make runs. And if you're feeling a little dizzy, I don't blame you. We haven't actually got to the bowling yet. Low averages and economy are common in the women's game, but the Australians are still absolutely slaughtering on this. My favourite bit from this is that Megan Shute has gone an entire World Cup cycle averaging 17, and Jess Jonassen has her beat by a full 2 runs per wicket. Look at them at the pointy end here, taking wickets, going for no runs, and basically on their own. And if you need a refresher, here is Megan Shute bending the ball like she's Neo and it's the spoon. And remember, Jonassen has the better fingers with her left arm finger spin. But I just want to go back to something else on the bowling list here. Their 3rd and 4th best heavy usage bowlers are Elise and Ashley Gardner. And of course, both of them are on the batting averages list as well, because, they're all-rounders. And so here they are on the list of the high scoring batters. And you might see Ashley Gardner all the way down here and think, wow, she's not that good. But as you might remember from before, she has the highest strike rate. In fact, she's scoring a 3rd quicker than all women's cricket. Sure, she has a bit of a rough average, but her job is to come in and smash it when everyone else has already made a lot of runs and set up the platform. And she does that so much better than any other woman in the game. And as far as high usage all-rounders go in the women's ODIs, there are only 5 who have taken more than 30 wickets and scored more than 500 runs in this cycle. To have two of them in your team is an unfair advantage when you already have the two best bowlers and five of the safest batting options around. Oh, and the fastest scorer. And we talked about Gardner, but obviously Elise Perry is kind of almost what we think of when we think of women's cricket. She's been that dominant for so long in the amateur through to professional era. And she's actually been in a batting slump since the last World Cup. She's averaging 48 in that time. In the previous cycle, she played around 40 games and she averaged 79.21. Every third innings, she was not out. So 48 for her is quite low. And how has she made up for this shocking run of form with the bat? Well, by dropping 8 runs a wicket off her average in this current cycle. She's no longer the fast tearaway bowler she was when she was younger, but she's actually a far better bowler now, and in one-day cricket, by far the world's best all-rounder. Just a different kind than she was in the previous cycle. So with all I've said so far, it's probably hard for you to think of a more dominant cricket team over a 6-year period in one-day cricket. But despite only losing 7 games since the start of 2016, one of them was a doozy, when Harmanpreet Kaur knocked them out of the semi-finals of the last World Cup. It's actually pretty funny because there can't have been many teams in world sport with a better win-loss percentage than them in that period, but one of the few times they actually lost, it really mattered. And Harmanpreet went right at the bowlers who are still dominating now. She destroyed Jonathan, Schutt and Gardner that very day. It was only Elise Perry who kept her to under a run of all, just. But then the Australian batters fell apart as well. None of Healy, Lanning and Mooney past 15. Perry made 39. And the only reason they got close was the incredible hitting from Elise Villani and Alex Blackwell. Outside of Perry, not one of their stars from this cycle stood up on that day. Since then, they've kind of all stood up. I was at that game and I remember Lanning and Mott looking shocked at the press conference, like they'd seen a ghost, or, a monster. But Alex Blackwell in her book talks about how backwards they were in terms of tactics at that point. And it wasn't even their only surprise loss. Remember, they were beaten by the West Indies in 2016 in what was a fairly shocking upset in the T20 World Cup final. Australia certainly had the best talent. That is clear from looking at the records at the time and even now. But they just weren't a very smart team. And 2 incredible innings from Hayley Matthews and Harmanpreet Kaur destroyed them. But since then, they have won back-to-back T20 World Cups and the whole 26 games in a row thing. They were good before, and they are so much better now. So I checked the odds to see what the bookies think, and they think Australia have already won. The best money you can get is evens, and they're 8-11 and 4-6 on others. And if you never bet and you don't understand odds, the best way to explain this is if you put down $10 on the Australians to win this World Cup, you would get only $17.23 back. These are the sort of odds you usually get in a 2-horse race. And yet, in this case, the Australians are up against the entire field. This is the kind of odds you expect for a US basketball team going into Olympics. But you can understand why you get these odds. Since that Harmanpreet innings, Australia has lost 2 matches. In 2017, they had a huge collapse when it seemed like they were going to chase 284 in a DLS game and fell 20 runs short against England. And they lost a game at the start of this summer when the Indians' tail rallied well to get them over the line with just 2 wickets in hand. They were in front in both of those matches and still took them pretty close. And I would look into any of their other losses if they had any. But if you look back a little bit before the World Cup when they had a few extra losses, they lost a close game to New Zealand and another one to England. The latter was in that same World Cup that they lost to India. So maybe, kinda, if you can possibly hang with them, you can beat them. But remember, they score twice as many runs per wicket as they allow, and they are 1.3 runs and over quicker than their opposition. And the whole 26 and not losing thing. Teams struggle to hang with them. There will be pressure on the Australians to win this World Cup, because everyone obviously expects them to win. But the only way to put pressure on them in the games is for your side to somehow dismiss the 5 batters who never seem to fail as a unit, score quicker than their 2 fastest players, and not be dismissed by their 2 absolute outstanding gun bowlers. I mean, as far as game plans go, it's not ideal. If there is any good news for other teams, it's that New Zealand just beat them in a practice game. I mean, it doesn't count as a real loss, but it's better than nothing.